How's it going, everyone? Austin Honecker here. I just wanted to come on here for a while and give him a review for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Rampage from 2 nights ago, which was November 11th, 2022. I gotta say, it was awesome from start to finish. For the matches, match 1, it was Brian Cage versus Dante Martin in an AEW title eliminator match. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Brian Cage went over and advanced in the AEW title tournament with the Weapon X. Match 2, it was Bandito versus Roosh in an AEW title eliminator match. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Bandito went over and advanced in the AEW title tournament with a schoolboy. Match 3, it was Nyla Rose versus Kayla Sparks. That was a squash match, but the ending to it, Nyla Rose went over with the Jaded. Now after the match, Jade Cargill and the Baddies, which are Kiera Hogan and Layla Gray, came out to the ring, and Nyla Rose beat the shit out of Kiera Hogan and Layla Gray and laid them out, and then Jade Cargill got into the ring, and Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose got into a brawl, and Jade Cargill got the best of Nyla Rose and knocked her out of the ring. Then Jade Cargill got out of the ring, and all the referees and the security got in between Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose, and Jade Cargill and the Baddies, which are Kiera Hogan and Layla Gray, were held back while Vicky Guerrero, Nyla Rose, and Marina Shafir escaped and everything. That was cool. That was after the match, by the way. And match 4, which was the main event, it was Orange Cassidy versus Lee Johnson for the AEW All-Atlantic title. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Orange Cassidy went over and retained the AEW All-Atlantic title with the beach break. Now, after the match, Cole Carter came into the ring and tried to attack Orange Cassidy, but Orange Cassidy executed the Orange Punch to Cole Carter and laid him out, and then the Best Friends, which are Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor, came into the ring, and so Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and Orange Cassidy done their signature celebration of hugging and giving the people what they want. Well, QT Marshall was getting ready to come into the ring, but he backed out, and Cole Carter got up, and the Best Friends, which are Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and Orange Cassidy, ended up doing their signature hug, but to Cole Carter, and Cole Carter ended up pledging his allegiance to the Best Friends, but it backfired on him, so the Best Friends, which are Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and Orange Cassidy, ended up attacking Cole Carter, executing a double chokeslam powerbomb combination to Cole Carter and laying him out, and then the Best Friends, which are Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and Orange Cassidy, continued to celebrate Orange Cassidy's victory and everything. That was cool. That was after the match, by the way, and that was match 4 in the main event, by the way. Now, besides all that, Christian Cage and Luchasaurus came out to the ring, and Christian Cage got on the microphone and was talking shit about Jungle Boy, saying that Jungle Boy said he wanted to come face to face with him and Luchasaurus, but they're out there now, and Christian Cage called out and so Christian Cage called out Jungle Boy, and so Jungle Boy came out, and Christian Cage was as soon as Jungle Boy got into the ring with a microphone, Christian Cage was talking shit towards Jungle Boy, talking about how him and Luchasaurus were done with him, and how they were going on to bigger and better things of winning AEW gold and everything. And Christian Cage was also talking about how Jungle Boy cost Luchasaurus the AEW All-Atlantic title and everything. And then Jungle Boy was talking about how Christian Cage was whining, bitching, and complaining because he cost Luchasaurus the AEW All-Atlantic title and everything. And Jungle Boy was also talking about how Christian Cage and Luchasaurus have cost him everything. But and Jungle Boy ended up issuing a challenge to Luchasaurus in a steel cage match at Full Gear. Well, Christian Cage ended up accepting the challenge, and Christian Cage went to talking shit about Jungle Boy's parents, and then Jungle Boy ended up trying to choke Christian Cage, but Luchasaurus attacked Jungle Boy from behind and beat the shit out of him, and then as Luchasaurus was beating the shit out of Jungle Boy, Christian Cage got a steel chair and set it up, and Luchasaurus ended up executing the choke slam to Jungle Boy through a steel chair and everything. And so Christian Cage and Luchasaurus stood tall while Jungle Boy was laid out and everything. That was cool. Lexi Nair interviewed the Death Triangle, which are Pac, Rey Fenix, Penta El Zero Miedo, and Alex Abrahantes. Well, Lexi Nair brought up about Rey Fenix going after the AEW All-Atlantic title and not coming out with success and everything. And before Rey Fenix could talk, Pac was saying, "Listen, gentlemen, we have to get on the same page. We have to be smart. We have a big target on our backs. We have the AEW Trios Championships. We got to be smart. Ray, the reason why you don't have the AEW All-Atlantic title is because you weren't playing smart. And Penta, the reason you are not AEW World Heavyweight Champion, and the reason your best friend Eddie Kingston is not in the AEW title tournament is because you weren't playing smart and neither was he. So, we all got to get on the same page, and we have to be smart, gentlemen." And so Pac ended up leaving, and the Lucha Brothers, which are Rey Fenix and Penta El Zero Miedo, along with Alex Abrahantes, were looking on and everything. That was cool. Lexi Nair interviewed The Firm, which are Lee Moriarty and Stokely Hathaway. Well, Lexi Nair brought up to Lee Moriarty about facing off against Jon Moxley but not coming out successful and everything. And Lexi Nair asked Lee Moriarty how he was feeling and everything. And Lee Moriarty was saying, "You know what, Lexi? After my loss to Jon Moxley, I've learned a lot. So, what I have learned from my loss against Jon Moxley, I have learned that my confidence has gotten better. And my next destination in AEW is going after AEW Gold." So Stokely Hathaway was saying, yeah, that's right, you heard the man. Lee Moriarty is coming after all the gold in AEW. And so Hook ended up appearing, and Stokely Hathaway got scared and said, "Go ahead and keep talking, Lee." And so Hook just ate out of his bag of chips and stared at Lee. And so a stare down between Hook and Lee Moriarty occurred, and Hook left. And then The Firm, which are Lee Moriarty and Stokely Hathaway, were looking on and everything. That was cool. AEW aired a video package of the House of Black, which are Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews being resurrected from the dead, with Julia Hart being the one resurrecting them from the dead and everything. That was cool. Renee Paquette was getting ready to Renee Paquette was getting ready to interview Claudio Castagnoli. But before Claudio Castagnoli could talk, Jake Hager appeared, and Jake Hager was talking about how Claudio Castagnoli was not a professional wrestler. He was a sports entertainer, and talked about how him and Claudio Castagnoli were a great tag team once upon a time in WWE and everything. And Jake Hager was telling, Claudio Castagnoli was getting ready to talk, but Jake Hager was telling Claudio Castagnoli not to answer him right now, but to think about it and everything. And then Jake Hager told Renee Paquette, "I like this hat." So Jake Hager left, and Claudio Castagnoli and Renee Paquette were looking on and everything. That was cool. And Mark Henry interviewed Orange Cassidy along with Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and Danhausen, and Lee Moriarty, along with QT Marshall, Nick Comoroto. And Mark Henry interviewed Orange Cassidy along with Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and Danhausen. And Mark Henry interviewed Orange Cassidy along with Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and Danhausen, and Lee Johnson along with QT Marshall, Nick Comoroto, and Cole Carter. Well, Mark Henry brought up about Lee Johnson returning to AEW and joining the factory by attacking Danhausen and helping QT Marshall beat Danhausen on AEW Dark Elevation and everything. And Mark Henry asked why and everything. And so QT Marshall was saying, first of all, Mark, Lee Johnson did not join the factory. He came home to the factory. And tonight, he's going to take the AEW All-Atlantic title from Orange Cassidy. Lee Johnson was saying, also, Mark, I did what I done to Danhausen, and that clown deserved it. Danhausen was saying, I'll rip your teeth down your throat. And then Orange Cassidy stopped Danhausen, and then Orange Cassidy was getting ready to quote Mark Henry, saying, well, it looks like there's been enough talk. But Mark Henry cut Orange Cassidy off and said, Orange, I got it. Then Mark Henry said his signature line, well, looks like there's been enough talk. It's time for the main event and everything. That was cool. Now, besides all that, Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and Excalibur done commentary throughout the whole show. They done awesome as usual. The referees for the event were Rick Knox, Paul Turner, Bryce Remsburg, and Aubrey Edwards. Okay. Paul Turner refereed the match between Brian Cage versus Dante Martin in the AEW title eliminator match. Aubrey Edwards refereed the match between Bandito versus Roosh in the AEW title eliminator match. Rick Knox refereed the match between Nyla Rose versus Kayla Sparks, and Bryce Remsburg refereed the match between Orange Cassidy versus Lee Johnson for the AEW All-Atlantic title. All the referees done awesome as usual. Now, the match card for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite Wednesday night that's been announced so far, it's going to be the Death Triangle, which are Pac, Rey Fenix, and Pena El Cerro Miedo versus AR Fox and Top Flight, which are Dante and Darius Martin for the AEW Trios titles. The Jericho Appreciation Society, which are Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus the Blackpool Combat Club, which are Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli. Ethan Page versus Bandito in the semifinals of the AEW Title Eliminator Tournament. And Tony Storm versus The Bunny in an AEW Interim Women's Title Eliminator match. Those are the matches that have been announced so far. But besides the matches that have been announced so far, besides the matches that have been announced so far, Samoa Joe will be appearing live, Jon Moxley will be appearing live, MJF will be appearing live, Tony Schiavone will be conducting an interview with Britt Baker, Renee Paquette will be conducting an interview with Saraya, and The Acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, along with Billy Gunn, will be doing a hand-for-a-hand music video. So the match card for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite Wednesday night, so far it's been announced. Looks like it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see it, and I'm looking forward to it. And the match card that's been announced for All Elite Wrestling's pay-per-view event Full Gear, it's going to be Jon Moxley versus MJF for the AEW title. The Acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, versus Swerve and Our Glory, which are Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland for the AEW tag team titles. Tony Storm versus Jamie Hayter for the AEW Interim Women's title. Jade Cargill versus Nyla Rose for the TBS Women's title. Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson versus Claudio Castagnoli versus Sammy Guevara in a four-way match for the Ring of Honor World title. Sting and Darby Allin versus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Jungle Boy versus Luchasaurus in a steel cage match. Saraya versus Britt Baker. And the finalists of the AEW Title Eliminator Tournament will face off to determine the number one contender for the AEW title sometime down the road. So the match card for All Elite Wrestling's pay-per-view event Full Gear that's been announced so far looks like it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see it, and I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, I just wanted to come on here for a while and give them a review for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Rampage from 2 nights ago, which was November 11th, 2022. Like I said, it was awesome from start to finish, and with that being said, my name is Austin Honecker, and I will catch your ass down the road. Peace out.